3, 2, 1. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the No Bad Ideas podcast. Before we begin this, I just want to say thank you for all the personal message, love, and support you guys have shown me for last episode we dropped on Sunday with Brian Noobs. It was absolutely amazing. We talked about a variety of subjects, including humble beginnings, mental health, and much more. Please check it out right away. It's uncomfortable for me. It's uncomfortable for you, but I'm going to say it. Before I bore you any longer, real quick reminder, episodes every Sunday. So please sure you are paying attention because every single Sunday you're not going to want to fall behind and miss an episode. We're just going to get right into the guest introduction today. You know, some people have a really easy job. Some people have to entertain only a couple people. This man has to entertain a whole city, which I could definitely not do. JD is the co-host of the morning show on CJAY 92, the Jesse and JD morning show. Everyone, please give a warm welcome for JD Lewis.
Hello.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. Thought about sauntering in like the Joker with the smoke in my mouth, gun in my pocket. I didn't do either.
I would have been more impressed with the smoke. So real quick, I'm not too sure if people are familiar because I did actually do a lot of my time growing up in Drumheller. You're actually the very first host of Drum FM when it first opened up there.
When you say doing time in Drumheller, that typically means the pen.
Yes,
you
very
know that,
true.
Right? Were you in prison?
No, but growing up there, is there really much of a difference?
Is it much of a difference? No.
So yeah, let's explain. How did becoming the opening host of Drum FM? How did that come about?
I came out of high school and was very bored and didn't really know how I was going to pay my bills. Without a job that was going to make me want to kill myself. And I had an uncle who worked in radio, and I always thought Uncle Barry had like the coolest job. So I asked him, I'm like, is radio worth doing? He's like, it's treating me pretty good. Why don't you give it a rip? So I went to Winnipeg and did a 1-year certificate program for radio, which is a lot like Clown College. Mm-hmm. It's really not school at all. And then just before the course was done, I got a phone call saying that they were opening a brand new station in Drum. My dad is from Drumheller initially. So it actually worked out kind of well. Mm-hmm. I found an apartment and was the morning guy when we pressed go on Drum FM. So
that's what brought you to Drumheller, was Drum FM itself.
Yeah. I mean, that's like exactly where you want to be as a brand new broadcaster. You want to be somewhere small. It's hard to live somewhere small. You know that. Mm-hmm. Whether you're from there or not, it's hard to live in a small space. But the beauty of a small space as a broadcaster is like, you can get away with stuff in a town of 7,000 people that you can't get away with in a town of 1.5 million. Mm-hmm. So you can cut your teeth and get, work a lot of the kinks out and screw up a lot, and and then hopefully move on to bigger jobs. So.
What was the biggest difference from? Because I'm assuming there's probably a lot of surprises with going into Drum FM as your first radio host. Like, what was some of maybe some big surprises or some things that were like super cool or?
I was, like a lot of people, I'd only been to Drum for like day trips and stuff, right? Like Drum is a real big like day trip town, right? You know that because the population quadruples between May and September. And so I hadn't really been there. And I guess I had kind of underestimated the whole dinosaur thing. I'm like, I guess that's kind of their thing. No, that's your thing, right? Like there's a dinosaur, 4 of them on every corner, and everything is named after a dinosaur. Whether it's the local tattoo shop, Jurassic Inc. Bernie and the boys, I guess, didn't really have much of like a Jurassic feel to it.
Like the Mammoth Burger and stuff.
Even when I went to I remember the first day I went to go get groceries, and I went to the IGA, and it had a fucking dinosaur coming out of the wall of it. I'm like, okay, all right, it is the Dinosaur Valley. So it's a very quirky place, but I saw a lot of similarities between that and Rocky Mountain House, where I'm from. So,
what was it like then? Going from small town radio host to going into a big city. That's got to be quite a bit of a jump there. Was there much difference there really going in?
Yeah, I worked in Red Deer, and then Edmonton, and then Calgary. So it was kind of like a natural progression, which was cool. Because like I was saying about making mistakes, there are then mistakes you can make in a place like a Red Deer. Like a community of a couple 100,000 that, again, you still can't make in, a 1.5 million city. So, I think it was a really natural progression going from Drum to Red Deer to Edmonton to here. It just kind of made sense in a weird way. It's weird when like the pieces fall into place like that. It sounds really, really cliche to say, but it worked out.
Well, definitely, because it's kind of weird because like your job like falls into so many. Like it's hard to predict into when so many different subcategories in it. So when you're talking to that many people, how do you really have not a bad day, if that makes sense, when you're talking to so many people? Because everyone has bad days, right? How do you deal with a bad day when you have to talk to so many people that morning?
That's a really good question. I don't know that I have a really good answer because I feel like the answer is different depending what you're going through. Like everybody has those mornings where they wake up and they just don't really feel on. Those are the worst kinds of mornings in radio because you're like, well, we got to find a way to be on, So whether it's like running around the building a few different times or slapping yourself or just caffeinating, I guess like those are some of the easier ways. But I think along the way, especially doing a morning show, I've had to learn like little tips and tricks and just little things that work. Like sleep is the biggest priority for me. It means I'm really boring between Sunday and Thursday because if it happens after 8 o'clock at night, I'm probably not going.
Yeah.
Because I have to go to bed, because I wake up at 3:15. So prioritizing sleep is big. Eating really well, as boring as that sounds. I'm about to say a bunch of really boring, unfun stuff, but it really is just like setting yourself up to succeed. Also being a lunatic about preparation. You know that because you're podcasting. It's the same thing. It's doing your research ahead of time and knowing your material so intimately that you can just kind of press go on your brain. And as long as you are properly caffeinated and well slept and all that, like you can just kind of let it go and hopefully be as relaxed as possible because relaxation really is the biggest key. It's just as true for a podcast. The more relaxed we are, the better the conversation is going to be.
No, exactly.
It's like taking a chick on a date. It's no different. Like if you're squeezing your stick too tight, like you're not going to be able to make a play. But if you go in like feeling yourself and relaxed and ready for anything, then you're going to have a better time.
Well, I know the environment has probably a lot of help in it because I used to work in an office, and even on the bad days, you go in and the environment would be so positive, right? So I can probably assume it's got to be the same over there at the radio station. It's harder to have a bad day when you go in and you're around so many great people.
Yeah, the energy's infectious. That was a lot of people ask me like, what my favorite thing was about working with Jerry Forbes, and truthfully, it's like Jerry didn't have any. I would say Jerry didn't have bad days. That's a lie. But Jerry was always just so fun to be around. It made being at work unbelievably fun, even on the days where you're like, I think I would rather be sleeping. It was still very fun to be awake alongside a dude like that. And the same is true of Jesse. It's we're just a couple of buddies shooting the shit for 5 hours a day. It's pretty cool.
Well, that's what I loved about the last episode you guys did with Gary Forbes. I remember him opening up about why he went to different radio stations, right? Yeah. And he was saying a couple of jokes in there. It's just so cool to have that honesty. Because you kind of like were coming in, kind of like under his wing in a way. You assumed you probably learned a lot from him. What are some big inspirations learning just from that? Because he is, just so well known among the radio world, right? So yeah. How is that?
I think, Jerry's known for a lot of things, good and bad. And probably what people would tell you, gun to their head, like, what do you remember about Jerry? The first thing they would tell you is some of the most outrageous shit he's done. But the most memorable and the most important to him, I think is completely different. It's cut from a totally different cloth. And that's helping people and being good to people. That was like probably the biggest thing Jerry taught me. He taught me a lot of stuff, good and bad. Like I have some bad habits that came from Jerry. I went through a VLT phase, which was like a really dark phase of my life. But Jerry taught me above all else, like we have a platform and it's to be used to help people. And that's true on like a weekly basis with the Jerry Forbes Secret Wish. It's true with all the stuff we do with the CJAY Kids Fund. And I guess like in a bit of a cheesier way, it's just kind of true on the whole. You have a responsibility with a platform like that to make people feel good. There's a lot of reasons to feel bad about Calgary and Alberta and Canada. It's tough sometimes. You wake up and you check your Facebook and your Twitter and your Instagram, and it's not hard to get downtrodden and disappointed. It's our job to make people feel good in spite of that, to be an escape, to be what people look to when all of the ugly shit is over here. They're like, yeah, but you're still fun. It's your job to be fun.
No, exactly. I actually did want to get into that because that's the one thing I love about CJAY is they're part of the community so much and so many helping things. What are actually some of, the proudest moments you've had, just being a face of CJAY on helping the community? What are some of the proudest moments you've had there?
The two biggest ones, there was a really unfortunate situation in the Crow's Nest Pass where a little girl had gone missing along with her dad, and she was found dead. And it was a really dark story, and nobody knew exactly what to do with little Haley. And we just kind of fired up a GoFundMe, and GoFundMes were pretty new back then. Like this is 4 or 5 years ago at least. And we just kind of started up a GoFundMe and made ourselves like the the central point, to connect people to that GoFundMe and just put it out there that, we would be stewards of that money and we would get it to the family. We weren't sure where it would go. And in like 72 hours, we had $45,000.
Wow.
And you're like, okay, well, that's what I'm talking about. That's the platform being used for some good, where it's more than just like armpit noises and stuff, like it's there so we can do some good with it. Right. And we were able to take that money and give it to a family that had just been through pure hell and go, here, everybody's thinking about you. And it's not really about us. The other one, I guess, that always sticks out of my head, there was a kid named Josh Davies, who was a hockey player in Airdrie. And he is diabetic and had his diabetic pump stolen from the dressing room while he was on the ice in Airdrie. And this story popped up, and we realized diabetic pumps are like way more expensive than you're probably thinking. Yeah. It's like $7,000 or $8,000 worth of equipment, which... I mean, like no family should have to be on the hook for that just because some shithead broke into a dressing room. Yeah. Like it was brutal. And so we were able to just go right into the kids fund and go, here's $8,000. Go buy a new pump. And you're like, okay, that's it. And again, like that's the kind of stuff where you're like, it's bigger than armpit farts.
That's the one thing I absolutely love about you guys. And it's so weird because like it's kind of hard to explain, but you have like the influence power of like I guess the new days is called a social media influencer. Like you guys have that power, but without the, social media there. You have it in the oldest, rarest form still. So where do you see like radio and influencing where it is today, like in many years to come? Do you think it's going to be getting stronger with streaming services?
When I first got into radio, satellite radio was just popping off, and they told me and they told everybody that was a stupid thing to pursue. Don't become that for a living because there's satellite radio and radio's going away because it's going to change forever. And that's not true at all. Radio is still very much around, as is satellite radio. They found a way to coexist, and I think it'll continue to change. But like what we're doing right here isn't really any different from what I do between 5 and 10 every morning. Like there's always going to be a need for entertainers, and people will always have an appetite for conversation. So I don't know where exactly it will go, but I know people like you and me will always be able to do this. I don't know if anybody will give a shit. Like like nobody may give a shit in 5 or 10 more years once really interesting robots find a way to talk to one another. But I think there will always be a need for entertainment, and people will always have an appetite for this.
Well, there's always like, pros and cons to it. Like obviously the way that it's going, I love how I can, open my iHeartRadio app, search you guys up, and then I have it right there in the palm of my hands. Yeah. Which is good because, I live by myself, so I have no one to talk to in the morning, right?
Yeah.
So I just listen to you guys, it works out. And you guys have awesome music. That's kind of one thing I wanted to dive on, because you guys are definitely more the hard rock out of the more lot radio stations. How do you get much, influence on song selection? And how does that, like, what's the guidance you have to follow for your selection?
We don't have a ton of leeway, to pull the curtain back a little bit, and I'll probably get in trouble for that. Here we are. No, we're not picking. I've worked shows where you do get to pick, and other kinds of shows at different times of the day definitely pick their music. We do not. But the one thing I will say is we really believe in our music, right? Yeah. I mean that it's pretty rare to find a radio person that is playing music on the radio that they love. That's especially rare, self-included at points. I've worked at top 40 radio stations. I've worked at country radio stations. I could give a shit about top 40 and country. But it was still cool to show up and fill in the blanks in between the songs and stuff. And you never disrespect the style of music because it means something to somebody for sure. Otherwise, it wouldn't be there. And I really believe in rock music, and it's still really cool to be able to be the guy that says, "Here's Blink-182." That's very vindicating. I have a Blink-182 tattoo on my arm, so it feels like we've come full circle here.
That's what I love about it, because actually, in a way, it helped me shape my personal music playlist, just because, if I listen to the songs you guys share more personally, when I throw on you guys' radio, it's not much different than hitting shuffle on my playlist.
True say.
That's what I love about it.
Yeah.
What about you? What does your personal playlist look like, when you're not out at the radio station?
I'm all over, all over. Big hip hop guy. Have been for quite a while. We don't play any hip hop unless you count the Beastie Boys. Big punk rock guy too. I was a Warped Tour kid growing up, so it's all about that. You will find me at really weird metal shows at Dickens Pub on a Tuesday night sporadically. Yeah. So I'm all over the place, and I know that's a really cliche thing to say, but I've always thought that's that's everything I love about music, is not being limited to one kind, right? So like maybe the mood strikes and you're feeling some Frank Sinatra as you pour a scotch and eat or something like that. I have those nights, right? And then there's other nights where all I want to do is blast Nipsey Hussle and feel like a thug. That's all I'm looking for.
Yeah, actually, that's the one thing I have noticed now that I've lived in the city for a couple of years is the music scene for locally here is very strong. Actually, like we have tons of great bands here. Do you dive in much into like the music local scene here? Like, do you have any personal favorites out of Calgary right now?
I got a couple. Yeah. I'm real tight with the boys in the Path Less Traveled. Do you know them?
No, I'm not too familiar.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
Scott Bennett, Mike Biggs, Nick Skeggy, and Jordan King. Didn't fuck that up. Yeah, big fans of those guys. You know, I got to know them about 5-6 years ago. They were having a Blink-182 tribute show, and it was one band did Blink covers, somebody did Sum 41, another band did Green Day.
Oh, awesome.
And somebody did Alexis on Fire. And they were like, we heard you like all those bands. Do you want to host? Like, yes, I really want to do that thing. So yeah, they're a great example of everything I love about the Calgary music scene. But what I don't love about the Calgary music scene, and it's true to these guys, and it's true to I think just about every band from here that plays here, is it's horribly supported. You know, if it's not on a Friday, I don't even know if I could hone in on days of the week. I just think like there aren't enough people at shows locally, and it's tough because I remember distinctly in Edmonton it being very, very different from that. And you could blame a lot of things. You could blame the economy. You could blame venues. You could blame people's preferences, whatever it might be. The sprawl of this city. There's a lot of contributing factors, I'm sure, but it's a little disappointing. You know, there's some. You're right. There's cool music being made here. It's a shame a lot of people aren't going to see it.
Well, and it's crazy because this, you know, a lot of bands even from Calgary, it's not like they're still playing in garage, right? Like, you know, I have to give a shout out to Hazard from Calgary, you know, thrash metal band, you know, that's signed, you know, and WMD is another one, a bunch of young lads, you know, making serious. They just finished touring. They did a little tour in the States there in the summer. It's like we really do have so much, you know, talent. You got to come out and support it because I think it's a big way. One thing I did want to touch on is one thing that's kind of weird right now. It's a little weird to hear you swear, right? You know, fuck shit, cock balls, stuff like that.
Yeah.
How do you? Is it? It's probably just like you said, a kind of on and off switch once you get to work? Or?
Pretty much, yeah. It's just like I've never worked anywhere where you could. So as soon as you're in that environment, there's something in your brain that will keep you from doing it. It's like going to church, I guess, really. Like as soon as you walk through the doors of a church, you would automatically be watching what you said. Now, like granted, when it's CJAY, there's a lot of stuff like you can say without going quite that far. So it's a weird line to walk sometimes, I guess. I have a bit of a leg up, I guess, on some other people where I come from a really like religious household.
Okay.
Parents aren't like super religious anymore, but they were very religious as we grew up. So, I mean, like I had to watch my mouth all the time. So now it's just kind of like, I act and speak the same way I would for the most part around my parents. You know, just throw that filter on.
Well, that's.
For now, until I drop a hard C-bomb tomorrow on the radio, and you go, JD, do you want to do this together full time? I'll go, yes.
Oh, that's funny. So yeah, actually, I did see because I do follow you. You're a big NFL fan, actually. You're going out to a game right away here. I don't know if you want to touch much on that, but you got to be pretty excited for that. Is that your first NFL game? Or?
No, okay. It'll be my fourth NFL game, but first time I've seen my Buffalo Bills live. Okay. I didn't think it would be under these circumstances where they can clinch a playoff spot this weekend, and they're 9-3, and they look unbelievable. They beat the Cowboys on American Thanksgiving. What the hell is going on?
I was going for the Cowboys.
It was absurd to watch, and they're going to play the Ravens, and it's like we might be about to watch, hopefully, live in person the game of the year, maybe because the way Lamar Jackson and the Ravens are playing, like I'm just as excited to get to watch Lamar and those guys play as I am to finally see a game in Buffalo and get power bombed through a table.
Do you have any other big, like, you know, because I know that's, you know, got to be one of the main plans. What else do you got, you know, planned on there? Any other monuments you're going to check out?
In Buffalo?
Yeah.
Buffalo's a shithole.
It is.
Absolute shithole. Yeah. I came up cheering for the Buffalo Sabres. They were like my number 2, like 1-2 team with the Edmonton Oilers. And I had never made it to Buffalo to see the Sabres until last year.
Okay.
And everybody had dumped on Buffalo. You know, people do that with all kinds of cities. They go, oh, it's a shithole. Don't go. Like, yeah. And you go, and often, like, you can find great things. I'll start on the positive. Like Buffalo's a very passionate sports town. They really give a shit. But Buffalo's a shithole. It's really divey. I was in an Uber going from the arena back to my hotel with a buddy. And we asked the guy to stop at a beer store. And so he just swung into a gas station. And he pulled in, and I can remember like all kinds of vehicles being parked in the parking lot, and none of them looked like they were on the up and up. Like they were definitely all stolen. Mm-hmm. And we're just telling the guy, you know what? I don't need beer that bad. Just take us back to the hotel. We're good. So no, nothing else planned around the Buffalo trip other than sports and getting hammered.
Yeah, that's really all you need on a trip.
Like that checks a lot of boxes.
So what is NFL your biggest? Is the sport you're most passionate about, or like what are you for your sports fans?
Let's say hockey.
So Edmonton or Calgary fan now that you're at CJAY? Or?
Edmonton, yeah. Although I'll tell you, like you're an idiot if you don't support the local team, because like that's really good for Calgary. I know like you're like growing up an Oilers fan, I was like trained to hate the Flames. Mm-hmm. What I learned very quickly when he got here, another thing I learned from Jerry. Jerry's not the biggest Flames fan, but Jerry understands the local hockey team is good for everybody. Mm-hmm. Like, that's really, really good. So until they go head-to-head with the Oilers in the playoffs, and that hasn't happened in 2 decades, there's no reason why you can't also cheer for the local hockey team, because it's great for the economy. Mm-hmm. It's great for the vibe here in the city. So that's all good. I'm going to the World Juniors in the Czech Republic at the end of the month.
Oh, awesome.
So that should be kind of fun. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, a bit of a hockey nut. MMA is my big one, though.
Oh, really?
To be honest. Yeah. I became a UFC fan, and then I guess like an MMA fan on the whole about 10, 15 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And now I'm nutty about it. I bet on it every weekend.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's, we actually, so did you, if you don't mind me asking, did you win or lose money on your Nate Diaz, Jorge Masvidal?
I refused to bet on that fight.
Really?
Yeah, because it was too fun. I was like, this is MMA Christmas. Mm-hmm. And if you go to MMA Christmas, you wouldn't bet on Santa Claus, right? Mm-hmm. You don't need to. You just want to drink in the magic of Santa Claus.
Yeah.
I'm like, this will be so fun to watch. I don't want to have a skew towards either guy. I was so happy to see Masvidal get paid. Mm-hmm. So happy to see Nate Diaz back and getting paid again. Mm-hmm. Like there really is no loser here.
Agree.
It was just so fun to watch.
Well, and we also got, because their end of the year card is coming up right away, and that's a big fight card. Man. I'm super excited for Max Holloway versus Volkanovski there. Yeah. Volkanovski's a beast. He's only got the one loss, especially when he beat. I was more impressed with his win over Chan Mendes than Jose Aldo, but they're still both really good. The card is so stacked. So if you don't mind, are you betting on that one?
That one I'll bet on. I'll bet on Max. In fact, if I had to make picks on the title fights, I'd go Max, Amanda Nunes,
Yeah, she's GOAT for females.
And hopefully a double knockout in Covington Usman. Fuck those guys are the worst. They're just the worst.
I agree.
And I hope Masvidal doesn't waste his time with either guy, because they're boring and they're brutal. And I don't know that he could do what he did to Ben Askren twice.
Yeah.
Right? I love what he did to Ben Askren, but I don't know that I see him replicating that with an Usman or a Covington. They'll just wrestle the shit out of him, and that'll be boring.
Oh, well, even like when that Woodley Usman one came, right? I honestly thought Woodley was just going to walk right through him, to be honest, right? And no disrespect to Usman, that's got to be one of the greatest title performances of all time, just scorecard wise. Yeah, right? It just came out
50-45 across the board.
Yeah, it was, and you can even hear Woodley's corners and like, what the fuck are you doing, champ? Like, you got to do something. So, it's also like when Woodley comes back, I don't really see him losing to anyone with that fire almost. It's
he's old. That's the only thing. He's deceptively old, right? He's like 36, 37, like, especially for a wrestling based fighter. You saw Ben Askren's a great example. It's like for grapplers like that later into life, like those dudes don't necessarily age well. So it'll be interesting to see.
Well, then, I'm a huge MMA nut, right? So
I will quit my job just so we can talk MMA.
Okay, well, let's so I recently just got into MMA, right? Okay. I haven't watched for a long time, so I'm kind of like on the new age thing.
Yeah.
So what have been some of your absolute favorite moments you've seen being an MMA fan for so long?
I got 2.
Okay.
And I'm heavily biased, and I'm going to sound very privileged here, but I want to preface it with something. I won the trip. So I saw back-to-back Conor McGregor fights.
Oh, wow.
UFC 189 and UFC 194. 189, we bought our way down. It was a group of buddies and I, and it was just a regular-ass dude's trip. Didn't play any cards or anything to get there. Like, it was just, we were like, Conor McGregor was on this meteoric rise, and he was supposed to fight Jose Aldo at 189.
Yeah.
So we booked our trip down. Jose pulled out. We were all very disappointed, but the Mendez fight was crazy.
Oh, you got to see did you see Rory Lawler live?
I did, which might be the greatest fight of all time, maybe. And that might be the greatest pay-per-view of all time.
Yeah.
So that was really cool. And then a Conor McGregor fight is something completely different. Like 60 to 70% of the tickets are sold to Europe. they figure, and it's all Europeans flying over.
Wow.
So Vegas turns into Ireland for about 4 days.
Wow.
We flew in on the Thursday, didn't leave till the Monday.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so unbelievably fun. And then, as luck would have it, when I got home, a buddy of mine worked for the Lloydminster Bobcats, and as an AJHL franchise, like they have to have fundraisers all the time to help raise cash to run the team, right? And they were doing a lottery where you could buy a ticket, and it was like, I think there were only 100 tickets sold, and somebody was going to win a trip down to UFC 194. So I was like, yeah, whatever, support my buddy. I'll buy a ticket. And I got a phone call a couple weeks later, and he said, you won the trip. You're going to UFC 194 to see Conor McGregor fight again. I went, holy shit. And that one was even crazier because he was finally going to fight Jose. And as great as he looked against Chad Mendes, I remember saying to my buddy Mike, who went with me, I'm like, this is probably the end of the McGregor thing. It was a lot of fun, but Aldo hadn't lost in a decade. I was convinced he was going to chop his legs down like a tree.
Yep, 100%.
And that would be it. There was this lore about Jose Aldo back then, right? Because he hadn't lost. And then McGregor sleeps him 13 seconds in. And I swear to God, dude, it was like there was a tangible, like 5-second pause after he hit him and Jose dropped where nobody really knew what had gone on. And all of a sudden, it was just raining beer on us because everybody that had a beer went, holy shit. It was so cool.
That's an environment you can never replicate. I bet you just even that McGregor environment live is probably just something that's so hard to compare to anything.
There's nothing like it.
Oh, I was in a room full of Jose fans too when that happened. And exactly what she said. As soon as it happened, we all just stared at each other real quick, like just process it real quick. Yeah. Did this really just happen? That's so funny, actually. So do you have any other big plans coming up for watching any more future events? Or I know you got the one vacation coming up right away with Bills, right? So.
Yeah, between Bills and World Juniors, like that's pretty well it for trips for now. We'll see if I live through those two. And if I don't die, I thought about the Conor card January 18th in Vegas against Cerrone. But I think I'll hold because I think he'll beat Cerrone.
It's at 170. Did you know that?
Yeah, and that it's funny you say that because I think they're trying to set up a Masvidal fight for International Fight Week
in July there.
Yeah, and that was the first time I saw McGregor was International Fight Week. And those are really cool. You know, it's like there's fighters everywhere. Like you're walking down the street and oh, it's Bruce Buffer. Like you know, the UFC takes over all of Vegas for International Fight Week. It's so neat. So I'd like to try and get down there. I think that'd be really neat. You know, to see Jorge and Conor, I think Jorge would murk him.
Yeah.
But it would be so fun. It would be the shit talk Olympics leading up to it.
Yeah.
You know? And even if that's not the fight, they might just be trying to set up the trilogy with Nate because that was also 170.
Yeah, that's the way I've seen that the exact same way, to be honest. Kind of like, you know, the way I see it, beats Cowboy, loses to Masvidal, ends his career with an ADS trilogy.
So how long have you been an MMA fan?
Actually, the first card that I watched from start to back was Chad Mendes versus Conor McGregor there, which is awesome because when Chad Mendes got him on the ground and started delivering those elbows, it was like, holy fuck. Yeah. And I still stand by when they both got up after that, it was whoever threw that first punch because I thought they're both pretty dazed and Conor obviously connected with that beautiful 1-2 and put him to sleep. So I actually started watching from that card on.
Okay, so you've got like the perfect vantage point, I think, because now you've been a fan long enough that you understand the ebbs and flows in MMA and how we'll go through years where there's like 3 or 4 events that grab your attention and the rest of it you're like, what are we doing here? You know, I think we've come through like almost 2 full years of that. You know, with Conor being gone, the Mayweather fight. Say what you will about that. How ugly the Khabib fight was. And just a lot of fights falling apart and a lot of stars leaving and not a lot of stars emerging. But now I feel like it's been a pretty good year for MMA and 2020 looks bonkers. And I feel like that's very validating for an MMA fan. Like it's cool to look at 2020 and go, that could be crazy.
Well, it's nice to finally see, you know, contenders starting out to where they are now. Because like I remember Zabit when he wasn't even, you know, a top 5 contender.
Yeah, man.
And to now watch him come to where he is now, it's kind of cool to finally see all those. Even like Brian Ortega was another one. And then when watching what Max Holloway did to him, I was, holy fuck.
Holloway is the 145 GOAT. I think Zabit's the only one I'm afraid of if I'm him. Even Volk, I'm like, I don't know. He's very small, and Max is very long.
No, he's a big 145er. He is. And he's had public known problems possibly, you know, making that weight cut, right? But what I love about him as a champion is how active he is, right? You know, you don't get a lot of champions, you know, I'll even, you know, Usman, I know a lot of injuries or whatever, but Holloway's fought twice almost since his last title fight. It might be his third, since then. So that's what I love about him personally. We also just had Jones versus Reyes announced there.
Yeah, dude.
Do you think that's kind of just like another John's playing with his food, or?
Yeah, in fact, I've heard it said, and I think it's a really good point. I think he's got to stop downplaying contenders, and it's almost on him to build up his competition, even if he doesn't believe it. I know he looks at like a Dom Reyes, and he goes, whatever, I fought guys like that. Because he has fought guys like that. So
Yes.
I get it, but at the same time, John Jones can't expect anybody to watch his fights if all he's doing in the lead up to the fight is telling everybody how that guy doesn't belong in the cage with him and how he's going to murk him. The other thing is he's not winning exciting fights anymore, right? John Jones isn't taking risks and stacking knockouts out like he used to be. So I feel like that almost works against him a little bit. I want to be hyped for John Jones. I want to be excited for those fights. And there was a time when I was.
Yeah.
But I see a John Jones Reyes card, and I'm like, I'll watch it for sure. And I'll bet on it for sure on John Jones. But I need the co-main to be really, really good because I'm not that jazzed about Jones Reyes, to be honest.
Agree. Well, it's almost kind of like he... when the occasion's a lot higher in his interest, he really shows up to there. I especially noticed in the Santos fight, right? He's like, Santos hardcore striking. I'm just going to try to outstrike a striker. But he kind of plays to his level when obviously it's no secret. Jones just could have took him down and really just done the ground and pound. And definitely that fight could have went 900 different ways of John Jones beating him, in my opinion, compared to, Thiago Santos' one.
Yeah. And,
that was a split decision. That was a very close fight.
Very close fight.
So then, let's say end of 2020, what are some predictions in the UFC world?
Conor McGregor wins 2 out of 3.
Okay.
And fights Nate Diaz at Madison Square Garden in November.
Okay.
Nick Diaz fights Jorge Masvidal. And that's their biggest pay-per-view of the year until Conor and Nate link up again. Because I just think that story is so cool. That speaks to everybody, whether you have an older brother or you don't. If you were ever on a playground ever, and that's all of us, you can appreciate a guy sticking up for his little brother. And I think that's the most sellable fight out there right now. Really, that's the big one. That's the one I got circled. And maybe it's a hot take, and it's maybe it isn't, but I think Stipe and DC link up again, and Stipe wins again.
Agree.
Yeah, it's not the way DC wants to go out, and it's not the way he should go out, because DC's legacy unfortunately is painted with a bit of a loser brush, despite the fact he's friggin' awesome.
Yeah,
but I just don't. I can't imagine him beating Stipe again. Stipe has the blueprint.
Stipe is. He doesn't get the credit he deserves to, in my opinion, especially after that Ngannou fight. I loved how big that hype train was.
Yeah, man.
And just to get, just 5 rounds of, him just mauling him almost, right? We also did just recently get Khabib and Ferguson.
Yeah.
Do you believe it when they're walking down the aisle, or?
I will believe it when I see it. Yeah, because my heart has been hurt by those two fighters saying they're going to fight each other before, including right up until the day before, right? And Khabib's pulled out.
Yep.
Honestly, I think Tony Ferguson beats Khabib.
Wow.
Nobody likes being on their back with Khabib. Nobody. Yeah. Even Dustin Poirier, who's a hell of a fighter, hated being on his back and panicked. You could see the panic on his face.
Yeah.
Tony Ferguson loves being on the ground. Loves it. He's built to be on his back, attacking from the bottom. Nobody's made Khabib bleed, and Tony makes everybody bleed. Tony is fantastic off his back.
Yeah.
And I heard it yesterday on a podcast, actually, that Tony has a Darce game that you can't fuck with. His submissions are great on the whole, but he's a Darce guy. For anybody who doesn't know what the Darce choke is, sorry, we're getting really inside MMA right now. But he could very well Darce Khabib. I really believe that. He's just got too many weapons. And Khabib has never fought a guy as elaborate as Tony Ferguson. Tony has so many ways to beat you.
Well, especially because, who's Tony's jiu-jitsu coach? He's always with
Eddie Bravo.
Eddie Bravo, yeah. I just love, hearing so much from Ferguson, from him just on the podcast and stuff. It's, it's finally the fight to happen, if it does happen, but that really is going to solidify the best 155er out there, really.
Yeah, man.
I do agree. I do love the Ferguson in it. There's this thing in the back of my mind. It's are we just going to see another 4-round mauling?
I can't hold that against you.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of credence behind that argument, right? Both these guys are coming in on, 12 win streaks? Something like that. Well, Khabib's never lost, but 12 win UFC streaks.
Yeah.
There's almost no precedent for two guys colliding like this, especially with all the hoopla and all the times we've tried to make the fight before. If Khabib wins, I will not be surprised.
Mhm.
But I also think Tony Ferguson's going to pull it off. Anyway, you want to bet on it? Let's bet on it right now.
Yeah, you want to?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Bottle of scotch.
Deal.
Done.
All right, you guys.
It means you have to have me back on again.
Yeah, we'll do a review over that scotch when you're drinking it and be like, yeah.
This trick in the book. Bait him into a second appearance.
So then, because I do like that weight class itself though it's super exciting because you got contenders like Justin Gaethje who's coming up and everything. But the one division I'm also kind of really excited for is the middleweight division right now, especially with how Adesanya dismantled Whitaker there.
Yep.
And there's just a lot of dark horses in that too. How do you feel about the middleweight with Adesanya as the champion then?
Izzy is unbelievable and so young, and it feels like Izzy almost has that thing about him where you get a sense that a guy could cross over, right? Mm-hmm. We had that with Ronda Rousey, and you were like, there's something different about Ronda Rousey, right? Mm-hmm. Like you almost feel like she could take it to a different solar system. Conor McGregor had it too. Mm-hmm. Brock Lesnar came in with it, so I feel like that's not the best example. But there's these fighters that feel bigger than the sport or that could be bigger. Mm-hmm. And then, there's a litany of examples of fighters who will never be bigger than MMA because they're boring. Yeah. So I think Izzy's really, really special. I have a hard time picturing anybody beating him. Just, he looks like an unbeatable dude.
You think Costa? No chance?
Costa's the most real threat. I believe that for sure. I'm not afraid of Romero. I think Romero will gas, and Izzy's head movement is too good.
Yep.
I'd watch a Whitaker rematch, to be honest. And I think other challenges will present themselves for Izzy. The one thing I don't want to see is the John Jones fight.
Yeah.
Pick on somebody your own size, right? Leave him alone, John Jones. Go up. Yeah. There are so many fights for Jones at heavyweight. Stop talking shit on a guy who's 25 pounds lighter than you. Stop it.
Especially because Rumble Johnson's coming back at heavyweight too.
Yeah, dude.
Come on, that's John Jones, Rumble Johnson, heavyweight. Even without it at heavyweight, that's the fight everybody's wanted seen for so long. Actually, when he announced his retirement after losing DC, I was so disappointed in a way. Just with the Rumble Johnson, I was like, man, you were literally such a beast, and that was hard to watch.
He's an animal.
It's so good. I can talk about MMA all day, but I kind of want to get out of the MMA now here, just because So then let's actually go back to CJ92 here. Where do you see yourself building yourself as a brand and going up there? Like, where do you see yourself at the end of the year as CJ92? Do you have really big goals on what you want to do maybe outside the company or big goals inside the company?
I don't want to say no, because no would make me sound like an undriven individual.
Yeah.
But at the same time, one thing I've been trying to remind myself is I don't want to undervalue what I have right now. I think sometimes we forget to be grateful. And not only am I very thankful for what I have here, but also if you had gone back 10 years ago and had told the guy who worked in Drumheller, who was for all intents and purposes fired from that job, that he would be doing a morning show in Calgary 10 years later, he would not have believed you. So I don't ever want to be greedy. That's not a virtue. And I guess if there were never anything more than this, this would be plenty. I love what I do. I talk a lot of shit about waking up at 3:15 in the morning, and that's because I hate 3:15 in the morning. But I also know I'm very lucky to have the job that I do. It's pretty cool to come into a blank canvas every morning and get to create whatever the hell you feel like creating. I've had some shit bosses. I got really good bosses right now who let me do essentially what I want, obviously within some parameters. But you're pretty lucky to be able to be a creator in 2019, and to have that put food on your plate and food in your dog's bowl. It's pretty cool.
Have you ever had personal favorites, radio interviews you've done? Maybe when you have a guest on, you're just like, man, I'm assuming you're probably excited for all of them, right? But you've ever had one that would have a little bit more heart, like a Blink-182 or something like that, right? Have you ever had any guests where you've just been awesome, just more excited for it, just generally?
Dana White, yeah. You were trying to get away from MMA, and I'm pulling you back in.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Dana White was talking at the Gathering in Banff, and I got a hot tip from a friend about 4 hours beforehand, and she was like, "I can get you an interview with Dana White. Do you want it?"
Wow.
And I was like, "Where?" She said, "Banff." And I was like, I'm in my car. Let's go." And so I literally just I filled my tank up and drove to Banff and got to hang out with Dana for 20 minutes. And this is a bunch of years ago. This predates be right around that time that McGregor was really popping off.
Okay.
I remember having a lot of questions about that. They had just had that terrible card in Calgary at UFC 149.
Oh, yeah.
Widely regarded as maybe the worst UFC event ever.
Yep.
Everything was a decision. They had like 15 fighters drop out of the local event leading up to it. Was a disaster. They hadn't come back yet. So I remember being really pumped asking about that too. Like, look, you're right near Calgary right now. Give us the goods. Like, when are you coming back? Just a really cool guy to get to talk to as well. You know, just because, for anybody who doesn't know the backstory of the UFC, like it's pretty incredible. You know what that dude, along with the Fertitta brothers, did, taking a product that was worth fucking nothing, and building it into a $4.2 billion company. It's unbelievable. It hadn't sold for $4.2 billion at that point, but the writing was on the wall that they had something really, really special. And I always think, like, getting to talk to a dude like that is super neat. At the same time, and this will sound really, really cheesy, I just like talking to people. You know, you probably noticed, like, we're a really listener-driven show. We put all kinds of people on the radio, and a lot of shows don't do that for a variety of reasons, I guess. But I think people are a lot more interesting than even they think. Everybody has a story. You know, I really have always wanted to do a show where it's about the listener being the star of it. Like, we're just there to facilitate. You know, like we tee up the listener and we go, okay, now tell your story. It's fucking awesome, and let them do that, because people deserve to feel special.
Well, that's kind of like, that's the way I kind of like explain this is, hey guys, I did a podcast to give an excuse to talk to rad people, right? Just because I agree with you. It's just the most interesting to hear everyone, even if it's story or just where they are today, or even just, the little tips and tricks they do to get to their everyday life in their profession.
Big time.
That Dana White thing is super cool. I'm super jealous.
It'll never happen again. So don't be too jealous of me, because, like, I've tried to get Dana again, and he's a hard dude to get.
Yeah.
Like, when they came to town for their last event, I spent 2 weeks, like, just blowing him up on Twitter, because it was his birthday the night that they were here in Calgary.
Oh, okay.
So I kept tweeting him. I'm like, yo, I'll throw you a birthday party. Like, I will take you for steak dinner, and then we'll go to Trolley 5 and the Pig and Duke after. Everything's on me. And he didn't hit me up. So.
Dana White, if you're watching this.
Dana, your next birthday, we're doing it together.
Oh, that's funny. Did you, because the last UFC Calgary card that they had was awesome. And I thought it was one of the most fucking stacked fight nights out there.
Yeah.
You had Joanna, you had Alvarez and Poirier there. Like, it was so, did you go to that one?
I
as
did,
well?
yeah.
How was that?
Yeah. Well, they had to bring that kind of a card after their last appearance here. It was awesome. I was like 8 rows back from the cage. And I recommend sitting that. Every other MMA card I've been to, whether it's UFC or anything else, I've always been up in the stands to some degree, whether it's like press or you're sitting somewhere else. Just getting to sit cage side is a completely different vibe, especially that Alvarez Poirier fight. Like, getting to hear what it sounded like when those guys were smashing each other, like being able to hear that from me to you away. It was insane. Especially Aldo. That it's a liver kick, wasn't it?
Yeah, to Jeremy Stevens.
Yeah, where Stevens kind of like backed up like this against the cage. We heard that, man. It was gnarly, but that's why I love going to the fights.
So when did you first start getting to MMA then?
Brock Lesnar. Not because I was a Brock Lesnar fan. I remember, like, thinking, fuck that guy. I want to see him get knocked out. So, like, I think that was UFC 100, wasn't it? Where Michael Bisping got knocked the hell out by Dan Henderson with that big Hendo bomb.
Yeah.
And then the main event was Brock and Frank.
Yeah.
The rematch. Yeah, that was the first card I ever watched live. I had seen, like, little clips and stuff, and then I started buying the DVD packs of the Ultimate Fighter series, like the show.
Okay, yeah.
Which was, I don't know if you've ever seen those. Those were awesome, especially back in the day. They would get like, a couple of studs from the game, like a BJ Penn and a Jens Pulver, and then throw them in with a bunch of, like, stud prospects, Nate Diaz being one of them. Yeah. And then you'd have to watch these guys live in a house together, take 4 fights over the course of 2 months, and try not to kill each other with unlimited booze in the house. Like, what a premise for a reality show. It was awesome.
Well, and actually, like, it's awesome for me being a new fan and then going back and watching them, because I don't have to wait to see where the career gone, right? I seen back where Michael Bisping was on the Ultimate Fighter and become a champion. Right? I seen him be champion before Ultimate Fighter. So many fighters, Kevin Gastelum came out of there, Nate Diaz came out of there. Yep. The last one I watched was the TJ Dillashaw versus Garbrandt one.
Yep.
I am a very big TJ Dillashaw fan, to be honest. So that, and honestly, because even like right before that fight happened, I was like, I think Garbrandt might just absolutely fucking end his life, to be honest. And to see what Dillashaw did to him after getting dropped near the end of that first round, that's one of the most exciting moments I've had. And so, for you watching it for so long, what do you notice the difference between, like back in the day to where it is today?
I think it's just on like it's such a bigger scale, like Jorge Masvidal is like a great example of that, where it's just like, and granted, like you could take his career way further back, when he was fighting in
Kimbo
backyards with
Slice.
Kimbo Slice
Yep.
and Dada 5000. But it's been cool to see a sport grow right in front of your eyes. You don't really get that with. It's not that hockey's not changing, but hockey's evolving more than it is growing. I think, if that makes sense. And that's true for like almost all of the major leagues. Like they're established, they are what they are, and they don't really fuck with it. MMA is still very, very new, right? And so it's always changing. Like the athletes are getting way crazier. You could take the champ from 10 years ago, put him against the champ now, at the exact same age. I'm convinced that like almost all of the champs now would beat the wheels off of the champs from 10 years ago. And that's a testament to how the game is changing so drastically. I love watching the appeal of it grow too. I love, and it doesn't happen very often, especially with a couple of shit years that we've had in MMA. I love when very casual or non-fan friends of mine will go, "Hey, what are we doing for the fights?" And you're like, "Oh, yeah, finally!" I'm so glad you asked. I love that. Like, it's been really cool to watch that sport blow up, and I think it could get way crazier. I really do. I think it's super, super interesting.
Well, and you could definitely tell how big it is blown up with Masvidal Diaz one, right? You have The Rock, one of the biggest social media influencers in the world, presenting the belt, and love him or hate him, you also had the president of the United States attending that card there, right? That's like Daniel's saying, he's like, that's just really big steps to have where we are right now. And I also find their job like also in a way. Because like you said, everywhere is established, right? You go play a hockey game in Calgary, then Vegas, you're going to have the same rules. But with fighting, you have different athletic state commissions, giving you so many different rules where there's just so many little things that, even with, drug laws and everything. Where do you feel like USADA is standing right now in the UFC? Like they're doing a great job or...
I think they could have done a better job. I think what they've done recently with needing like certain amounts and acknowledging the fact that like a lot of supplements are tainted, and a lot of these guys are just trying to take a multivitamin and they're getting God knows what, because the multivitamins are made right next door to the steroids. Somebody should figure that the hell out. Why are we making those in the same building? So I like what USADA's done there. I think they got it right with Nate Diaz, right? And that might be part of the legacy of Nate Diaz, at least when it came to that last Madison Square Garden card. The fact he dug his heels in and went, "I'm not fighting unless you clear my name and unless you figure this the hell out. You need to do that. That's important. You can't just be throwing athletes under the bus continually. That's no way to grow a sport." I think that's like, one of the cool things about Nate Diaz. And I think USADA and the UFC in partnership are figuring out what they need to do to help this sport be the best it can be, not only, next year, but 10 years from now.
Well, like you said, because with Nate Diaz, I wish they, in a way, would have figured that out before, because now we're going to see a couple late starts, like a Sean O'Malley, I think is a big example, right? He right now is serving a suspension from it, which is a shame because it's almost like the same situation as Nate Diaz, where they just found so little, and with all the research, they were able to prove it. And it's just such a shame because, he's undefeated, he was making waves. He had, superstar written all over him, so.
And he was supposed to be on that McGregor Khabib card.
Yes,
right? Which would have been like this awesome launch pad for him. Would have been phenomenal.
And he's such a fun fighter to watch, to be honest. Like
Instead, we got Derek Lewis, and he told us his balls were hot. So that was still pretty cool.
Yeah. But even going back to that last Madison Square Garden card, I just got to give an honorable mention to Kevin Lee there.
Yeah, man.
Oh, my God.
Nobody saw that coming. I did not have him in DraftKings. Let me tell you, I had Gregor Gillespie all goddamn day.
Yeah, and rightfully so. He was undefeated. He's so decorated as a wrestler, and especially with Kevin Lee's last two outings, right?
Yeah.
So, but, if I'm not mistaken, this was his first fight out of TriStar. Yeah.
And I think Faraz as a hobby deserves a lot of credit for that, right? That's a testament to what Faraz not only does now, but has always done.
Did you check out his last podcast with Joe Rogan there?
I haven't heard it yet.
Oh, it just came out like a week ago, and he goes a lot into the Kevin Lee and everything. That guy's just fucking brilliant. He really is. He runs his gym so well, and it was mind blowing, to be honest. Just listening to him, and especially just him and Joe Rogan go at it for so long. It was perfect. Definitely one of my favorites. Do you listen to much other podcasts, or?
little bit. I've gotten more into it. Mark Condrat is doing a great local podcast called Let's Meet for a Beer, which I think is really neat because I've always thought that like podcasts should be one of two things. I think they should either just be like really honest, real, authentic conversations like the one we're having right now where it just sounds like two dudes shooting the shit and having a beer, right?
Yeah.
It should sound like just a real conversation and less of a show, like not throwing on that voice.
Yeah.
Or it should be really great storytelling. And I don't know if you're listening to the Rob Ford podcast. It's called The Gravy Train.
Okay.
And they've done 5 parts of it so far. And it goes all the way back to before Rob Ford was even a city councilor.
Oh, wow.
And it talks about like all kinds of stuff. And I won't spoil anything, but it jumps into how Rob Ford was kind of the blueprint for Trump before there was a Trump, like pitting himself against the media and creating a narrative like that. And how smart he was to not only get himself into council, but then to become the mayor. And then it deep dives into how the wheels came off, about how like he was coked the hell out ordering poutine, after hours downtown at Toronto bars and stuff. And just like how the wheels really did fall off, for lack of a better term. So that's a great one too. I don't know, it's called The Gravy Train and it's dope. No pun intended.
I'm going to kind of put you on the spot here just because we did dive into like MMA and a couple personal things. Top 3 favorite movies.
Funny People with Adam Sandler. Inception with Leo DiCaprio. Mighty Ducks.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, not even playing. Like a lot of people think I reference Mighty Ducks a lot on social media and on the show, and I talk about how I love that movie. And I think people think I'm kidding. I'm not kidding. I have 3 DVDs at home. Everything else is on demand. I don't need a physical copy of shit.
Yeah.
Because the internet, right? I have 3 movies at home. Mighty Ducks 1, Mighty Ducks 2, Mighty Ducks 3. And I'm not even kidding.
Yeah. Well, that's I love it when people like assume you're kidding. Like I played a song for my buddy the other day, and I'm just jamming out. You know what this off is? He's like, no, I'm like Scooby Doo Zombie Island, man. It's a fucking banger.
Yeah. This thing slaps.
Yeah, you just had no clue. And I'm like, you're missing out, man. I don't know what your childhood was like, but
it was boring. I grew up in a town of 7,000 people, and I was out of town. So
yeah. There's dinosaurs and Scooby-Doo. It was a good time. Then, so what about, I know we touched a little bit, then favorite artist, Blink-182, big tattoo you said you got on your arm there, so.
Yeah. Alexis on Fire is another one of my big ones.
Pretty excited for the show, I assume, then?
That's a funny one. And I'm going to sound like a shithead for a second, but like, Alexis on Fire announces that they're coming to Calgary, and that's great. I've seen Alexis 10 to 15 times, probably. I remember seeing them at the Warped Tour and at tiny little shows growing up. And then, like, I don't know, they announced a show at the Dome, and I'm going to sound like a shit fan, but, like, that's not where I want to see that band, if that makes sense. It's also very expensive. If they're watching, they're not. But if they do, guys, the tickets are kind of expensive. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know. That wasn't what I loved about that band on the ground floor and on the way up. I loved how approachable that band was. And it's not that they're not approachable. I don't want to paint them with a bad brush or anything, but it's just not a band I want to see at the Saddle Dome. And to be honest, like I can remember paying $8 to see Alexis on Fire. So it's a little tough to justify spending $100.
Well, I paid...
Maybe I'm cheap and old. I don't know. It sounded pretty cheap and pretty old, but...
Well, I paid $9 to see them 2 years ago, opening night of the Stampede there.
Yeah.
They're absolutely amazing. The one thing I found kind of weird about that, I agree, I would love to see them at like the Palace or something. Or the Hewan Hall, right?
How do you manage demand? That'd be the only thing. Because we all want to.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? There's 20,000 of us, and that's why they're playing the Dome. So maybe we don't have an answer for this problem.
See, that's what I was going to ask you. Do you think they can fill the Dome? Because that's one thing I've been kind of questioning, because I also know they're playing Rogers and everything, and I'm not trying to discredit them whatsoever, right? It's just, I don't know, can they fill it, you think? Like 100%? That's just one thing I've been kind of processing.
Without any new music, that's tough, because they don't get a ton of radio play either. So it'll be tough. From what I've seen on Ticketmaster, far from sold out. That's not to say, it couldn't sell out. I would imagine though they'll have to drop the price of those tickets, and then maybe we people like us can snatch them up. But I would doubt that fills the entire joint. Those are really, really big rooms.
Yeah, like that was just one thing I was like, can they do it? Like, don't get me wrong, I hope they can, right?
Yeah.
But that was one thing that kind of goes like, it's a lot of fucking seats to fill, and you don't even have, no disrespect, but you don't even have like a crazy co-headliner at that as well.
The Distillers are an interesting one.
Right?
That's a really interesting. It would actually, in some ways, it would be kind of cool to see them down in Seattle and Portland, because my understanding is the bill is flipped there.
Okay.
Distillers are a bigger band in the States, as I understand. So the Distillers are going to headline, and then Alexis will support in Portland and Seattle. So that might be kind of neat. We'll see. It may sell right out. I don't know. It's
Well then, because I'm assuming you've probably been to a bunch of shows. What are a couple of your favorite shows you've ever seen?
Stay with Alexis on Fire for a second. I saw Alexis on Fire on a beach in Sylvan Lake.
Oh, really?
Yeah, right on the beach. They used to do Coors Light sponsored it, and I've done too many drugs, so I can't remember the name of the event. But they used to roll through Sylvan Lake annually. So one year it was Bedouin Sound Clash. It was Sum 41 one year, and then it was Alexis on the beach. Like 20 minutes from my parents' house. And I was like, this is the coolest. I cannot believe Alexis on Fire is playing on the beach of Sylvan Lake.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool. What else? Tool is always unbelievable live.
Oh, yeah.
I'm such a big Tool fan. And to be honest, I wasn't really a big Tool fan when I saw them live. And seeing them, I would tell anybody who doesn't get the Tool thing, and I get it, there's a lot of people like that, go see them live. Tool is an experience.
Yeah.
You know, like Tool is like nothing you've ever seen before, save for Pink Floyd. Everybody, I know people who have seen Floyd and have said like, no, there's a lot of similarities there.
Yeah.
On a bunch of different levels. So yeah, Tool sticks up for me too. In Flames at the Palace. The first time I saw Blink was pretty cool because they still had Tom in the band. That was pretty neat.
Yeah.
That's a couple.
That's perfect. One quick question to get you out here, because now that you're such an MMA, now that I know how big of an MMA fan for you, what was your reaction to Masvidal and that flying knee to Askren? Because honestly, for me being a fan, there's a couple moments I kind of compare to. The Cyborg Nunes fight is kind of like one of those moments I compare to, but
refresh my memory. Who else was on that card? That was third fight of the card. Who was the co-main and the main? Do we remember?
If I'm not mistaken, I think main event was John Jones.
Yeah.
Versus Diego Santos.
That
if I'm
sounds
not mistaken.
right. Yeah.
And then, if I'm not mistaken, I think co-headliner was Holly Holm versus Amanda Nunes.
You're exactly right.
Yes.
Okay. So with all that being said, and no disrespect to any of those fighters, but sometimes when like we go into a card like that where I think I know how it's going to go, I will get higher than I should. Because being high and watching the fights is the best. That's how I'd convince anybody to getting into it. And I remember getting too high, but thinking like, it doesn't really matter because I know exactly how these are going. I know that Ben Askren is going to lay on top of Jorge Masvidal for 20 or 15 minutes. I know John Jones probably won't lose. And I know Amanda Nunes is going to be the wheels off of Holly Holm. And so everything was kicking in, and then all of a sudden, Jorge lands this flying knee out of nowhere. And I remember, like, sitting there on my couch, like, trying to wrap my brain around what had just happened, and it took me a long time. And then I remember looking over, I was watching the fights alone, dark thought. I remember looking over at my dog and going, like, right to my dog, holy shit, that was crazy. And that was, to come back to, like, the sport crossing over and the sport growing. What was neat about that was in like, the 48 hours and beyond after that, you got to see like our sport go viral. And our sport doesn't go viral very often, right? It's not a dazzling last minute shot in the NBA or something like that where everybody knows that moment. You got to see a flying knee go all over the place and Jorge become a superstar. Overnight, basically. And if you had told me a year before that Jorge Masvidal would headline Madison Square Garden, I would go, against who or what? What is he fighting? Like a battle bot? No fucking way. And that really did like shoot him into another stratosphere. And that was so cool.
Well, that's what I love, because I have so many MMA fans, right? And everyone has such, like, I know that fight there, like, some reactions caused, like, relationships to break up. Like, it's just, just so much hilarious reactions to that. That's why I love to ask everyone, because even for me, like, as soon as it happened, I'm not gonna lie, I ran around the house literally for probably 5 minutes just going, oh my fucking God. Like, I couldn't handle it.
There's nothing like it. Like there is such little precedent for knockouts like that, especially when you're expecting one guy to lay atop the other dude. Like, that was the other special thing about that knockout. It didn't follow the script we'd all written mentally. And that's the best thing about the sport. It's the best thing about sports in general is when it doesn't follow the script. You think you know what's going to happen, and then the absolute opposite, the unfathomable happens. That's the best thing about sport.
Jessica Andre versus Thug Rose. That was one of those moments actually
Yep.
watching that because Thug Rose was outstriking her, outclassing her in every single way of that fight, in my opinion. And
Yeah.
just that one ball. I remember watching it going like, and that was a scary knockout.
She, I don't know if you saw the interview with her. She said a few weeks ago she was having bad like chronic headaches.
Oh really?
Leading up to that fight, Thug Rose was, and she said since she got slammed like that, she hasn't had a headache.
Oh really?
Oh yeah. Okay, so that slam to the head, the one that looked like it almost killed you, might have been like a really great thing for you. Weird.
Yeah, I follow her YouTube channel. She posts a pretty funny things. She's got one where she's super fucking high, eating just baked goods with her husband and stuff. Like, she's an awesome character, and it's kind of sad to see how she was talking about retirement after that.
Yeah.
Because I was like, Thug Rose, like, seriously, you beat Joanna twice when Joanna was untouchable. That's another one of those moments when she knocked out Joanna there first round, and I'm a
Yeah.
Joanna fan, so that was like, wow.
And they were screaming Thug Rose. Remember that? Thug Rose.
Yeah,
Thug
DC,
Rose.
Thug Rose.
Yeah, it's so good.
That's the best thing about MMA. How I can't even find the right word. Just how passionate it is, like how real it is. Right? You
Yeah.
can't script somebody saying that in commentary, or you can't script any of it really.
My phone went off after the McGregor Aldo knockout.
Mhm.
And he'll hate that I threw him under the bus for this, and he'll deny it, but it fucking happened.
Yeah.
It was Jerry texting me.
Mhm.
He knew I was down in Vegas, obviously, and he was calling it a fix. He's like fake, 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 and I'm like, you can't fake MMA. You can't. Yeah, well, not that you can't. Sorry, on a professional, high end level like that, like.
Mhm.
That's what I love about the sport. You couldn't fix it. You couldn't like. You could never fix a knockout like that, and some of our favorite moments, like they happen so organically and so authentically.
Well, like one honorable mention I remember watching it was Yoel Romero versus Chris Weidman. When he hit him with that flying knee, I almost called the cops and was like, "Are you guys watching this? Like,
Yeah.
someone is dying on screen
Yeah.
right now." Because that's, I don't know. I grew into it so fast, but like I said, just being such a new fan, it's kind of nice to see a whole new wave of fighters. Just, like I said, with the whole, Adesanya and Max Holloway, like I'm really starting to see the beginning of this new generation of champions just really come to, and very exciting time to be a fan of the sport.
It's a
right?
great time to be getting into it.
Mhm.
I tell all kinds of people that. I'm like, if you were ever waiting for like a certain moment to get into MMA, like this is like the best time. There's so many emerging stars. Like there's so many guys and girls who are just writing their story.
Mhm.
Like that Weili Zhang fight against Joanna is going to be
Oh.
ape. And I'm like, man, if you're brand new, like start watching now, because we don't know if Weili. Granted, there's a language barrier. We don't know if she's not the next Ronda Rousey with like
Yeah.
serious crossover power, right?
19-1 or 20-1 or something like that.
We don't know, right? And like there's all kinds of really crazy things that could happen, not only within the confines of the sport,
Mhm.
but then maybe with crossover too. That'd be my other bold prediction. Not for next year, because I think it'll be a couple more years.
Mhm.
But I think Tyson Fury is going to come to MMA.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you watch any do you watch Bellator?
Yeah.
Do you?
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm not like a hardcore Bellator fan, but I do watch quite a bit of their stuff. I'm obviously a massive Rory McDonald fan, right?
Yep.
So when he went over there, I'm obviously a big Gegard Mousasi fan too. So I was really excited for that. But do you watch boxing as well, or?
A little bit of boxing.
Casual?
Heavyweight boxing has gotten me back in.
Well, I agree.
Yeah, the rest I don't fuck with. But there's just like heavyweight boxing. It's a great time to be getting into boxing,
So
truthfully.
great.
Because, the rest of 2019 and then 2020 is going to be stupid, especially Wilder Fury too.
Oh man, that's I love seeing that meme of when Fury stands up and's got the Undertaker
Yeah,
music and
man.
playing. It still blows my mind. Just I can watch that 12 seconds just over and over because I don't know who grabbed him, what grabbed him back up. but
Some higher power,
especially watching this. Oh my god, he knocked him out in the 12th round, and then he gets up and then wins the rest of the round. More importantly,
That's why he's the
really.
Gypsy King. Right? You can't knock what that dude does, but also you can't fuck with what Deontay Wilder does. You saw it last weekend or 2 weekends ago. Just like the way he murked Ortiz. It was crazy.
Well, that's what I love about Tyson Fury. I wasn't a big fan of him until watching that Joe Rogan podcast, and that I can almost thank him for really getting me into boxing because I'm just like a casual fan. I watch like Deontay Wilder and all those, but I don't know, it's just brought like a new light to the sport watching that, right? How open he was, and I was like, I don't know, it was inspiring to watch his big comeback thing, and then watch him fight Wilder. Then it was the draw. Then I seen what Wilder did after, right? So. like you said, it's a good time to be a new fan to coming into all aspects, whether it's MMA or boxing, because there's just so many exciting things for the future.
Especially if you're disgruntled with your go-to sport right now, you know, like for whatever reason, if if you're falling out of love with a hockey or a basketball or whatever it might be, like it's a great time to be getting in because there's a lot of great things about being a fight fan. It fucking sucks a lot of the time too.
Yes.
But on the whole, it's like it's such a cool sport to be a fan of.
Well, especially like the comeback stories, like you mentioned, with if someone told you Jorge was headlining that, you'd been like, what?
Yeah.
Like, it's just crazy how much, your career and popularity can go from 0 to 100 in just a couple fights, right?
Yeah, man.
You might have a really big low, but next year that fighter is going to might be at the highest of the highs.
Yeah.
I just want to say seriously, thank you again, JD, for coming out on here, and I seriously appreciate it. You guys do remember he did bet me a bottle of scotch there, and we are going to drink it and do an MMA episode after that fight, because bring you back on for that. So
McCollin Amber or Jura 18, you can decide. Either one of those two is what you can buy me when Tony beats him.
Okay, I like it. So real quick then, where can anyone find you if they want to follow you?
Shit.
Social media?
Yeah, I could give my address too if you want to. I got nothing going on. Just at JD from CJAY, Twitter, Instagram, fuck Facebook.
Yeah. Remember, guys, we're going to be dropping episodes every Sunday. And look, it's uncomfortable. I'm just going to say it. Next Sunday, our episode is actually with Aaron Phillip Reddit, who just released his debut book, Legends of Kalane. And we got right into what it was like in the writing process, the publishing process. It's very interesting for anyone who's a big reader or writer out there. Really. Thanks again, JD, man.
Cheers, man. Thank you for having me.